Hey guys, tonight we are going to descend into the quiet, dust-filled archives of the forgotten. Imagine yourself there, surrounded by shelves towering into the gloom, the air thick with the scent of decaying paper and the faint metallic tang of old film. A single fluorescent bulb hums a weary tune overhead, casting long, dancing shadows. You're an archivist, a digital ghost hunter, tasked with cataloging the last remnants of a defunct, top-secret government program. In your hands, you hold a set of heavy, cold, lead-lined film canisters, unmarked except for a stenciled label, Project Chimera. Your job is to digitize them, to bring their secrets into the light. But as the first reel begins to turn, a cold certainty settles in your gut, the kind of certainty that tells you some things were buried for a reason. Frankly, if you were actually in this situation, you probably wouldn't survive this. The quiet of the archive, you'll soon learn, is not one of peace, but of anticipation. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. We'd also love to see where you're listening from tonight, so feel free to post your city and local time in the comments. It's always nice to know where our fellow history dreamers are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle, ambient hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You slide the canister onto the spindle of the vintage digitizer, a hulking piece of equipment you fondly call Ethelred, because it seems perpetually unprepared for the invasions of modern technology. The metallic click-clack of the reel loading is a familiar, comforting sound, a mechanical heartbeat in the silent room. You calibrate the lens, your fingers moving with practiced ease across the cool metal dials. This is your sanctuary, this tomb of forgotten stories. Most days, you digitize training films on how to properly file triplicate forms or grainy footage of obscure Cold War-era military exercises. It's usually as thrilling as watching paint dry, but with more government-issued watermarks. Project Chimera, though, it feels different. The weight of the canisters, the lead lining, that's for radiation, or something else they desperately wanted to contain. A flicker on the monitor, and the image resolves. It's black and white, shot on what looks like high-quality 16mm film. The first frames show a placard, handwritten in neat block letters. Project Chimera. Site B observation day 1. The date is smudged, but you can make out the year, 1958. The scene opens on a small, isolated village. It looks almost like a movie set, a picture-perfect slice of rural Americana, nestled in a valley surrounded by dense, imposing pine forests. There's a general store with a rocking chair on the porch, a white-steepled church, a handful of neat, clapboard houses with tidy gardens. You see people milling about a woman hanging laundry, a man repairing a fence, children playing hopscotch on a paved path. It's idyllic, almost painfully so. But your archivist's eye catches the inconsistencies. The camera is stationary, positioned high up, observing from a distance. There are no other cameras visible, yet the angles will sometimes cut, suggesting a multi-camera setup. The movements of the villagers are strange. There's a subtle synchronicity to their actions, a rhythm that's just a little too perfect. When the man hammering a fence post swings his hammer, the woman shaking out her rug 100 yards away does so in perfect time. It's a detail so small you'd miss it if you weren't looking, a detail that turns the idyllic scene into something deeply unsettling. You lean closer to the screen, the hum of the digitizer filling the room. It's a bit like watching the early days of automation, long before the Industrial Revolution truly took hold. People have been fascinated with synchronicity for ages. It's a known fact that the printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg around 1440, revolutionized the world by allowing for the mass production of uniform text, a kind of synchronized information. A small detail draws your eye. A cat, a sleek black shadow, stretches on a porch railing. It yawns, a perfect, lazy gesture. Then across the town square, a different cat, a calico, does the exact same motion at the exact same time. Your brow furrows. A coincidence, surely. But the feeling of wrongness intensifies. The footage is silent, which only amplifies the visual oddities. It's like watching a puppet show where you can't see the strings, but you feel their pull in every gesture. The people don't interact. They perform their tasks in a shared space, but in complete isolation, their paths never crossing. They are like celestial bodies in a lonely orbit, their patterns dictated by an unseen force. It reminds you of some of the stranger footnotes of history. For instance, there's a surprisingly persistent myth that Napoleon Bonaparte was exceptionally short. But he was actually about 5 feet 7 inches, which was average height for a Frenchman of his time. It's a historical meme, a piece of information repeated so often it feels true, much like how this village feels real until you look too closely. You make a note in your log. Synchronized movements, lack of interaction, pervasive sense of artificiality. Historians debate whether the Great Library of Alexandria was destroyed in a single, catastrophic fire, or if it suffered a gradual decline from budget cuts, neglect, and a series of smaller incidents over centuries. Looking at this film, you feel a similar sense of ambiguity. Is this a single massive experiment, or the result of 1,000 tiny, horrifying adjustments? The first reel spools to its end, the film leader flapping against the take-up reel with a soft, repetitive thwack, thwack. You sit back, the silence of the archive pressing in on you. That was just day 1. You have 14 more canisters to get through. You thread the second reel onto Ethelred, the metallic tongue of old celluloid filling your nostrils. The process is automatic now, your hands moving independently of your thoughts, which are still stuck on the unnerving ballet of that village. The monitor flickers to life again. Project Chimera. Site B observation day 3. They skipped a day. Or perhaps the footage for day 2 is missing. The thought sends a small, cold spider scuttling down your spine. The camera angle is different this time, lower to the ground, closer to the action. The eerie synchronicity is still there, but it's less pronounced, as if the puppeteer is trying to make the performance look more natural. The villagers now occasionally seem to acknowledge one another, a slight nod as they pass, a shared glance that doesn't quite connect. It's an imperfect attempt at humanity, like an eye-generated painting that gets the eyes just slightly wrong. You're watching the footage with the detached focus of a scientist, but a primal part of your brain is screaming that this is fundamentally, existentially wrong. The scene focuses on a small family, a man, a woman, and a young boy sitting on a porch swing. They swing in a gentle, rhythmic motion. The man has his arm around the woman. The boy leans against his father. A perfect family portrait. But they don't speak. They don't smile. They just swing, their faces placid, their eyes fixed on some point in the middle distance. The camera zooms in on the boy. He's holding a small toy car, running it along the porch railing. Then he stops. He turns his head and looks directly at the camera. It's a sudden, jarring break in the fourth wall of this strange performance. His face is blank, devoid of any childish curiosity. It's just a look of flat, empty recognition. He holds the gaze for a solid 10 seconds, an eternity in film time. The air in your archive room suddenly feels 10 degrees colder. You have the distinct, absurd feeling of being watched by a boy who has been a ghost in a can for over 60 years. Then, just as suddenly, he turns away and resumes playing with his car as if nothing happened. The moment is so chilling because it implies awareness. They aren't just puppets. They know they're being observed. It's the same kind of shiver you get reading about ancient Roman engineering. It's a historical fact that the Romans created a form of concrete so durable that it could set underwater and actually grew stronger over time, a chemical secret we've only recently begun to fully understand. There's an intelligence there, a deliberate design that feels both brilliant and alien. Your eyes are starting to feel grainy from staring at the monochrome footage. You pause the digitizer and rub them. The ghostly image of the boy's face burned onto your retinas. You take a sip of cold coffee from a mug on your desk. The silence of the archive is usually a comfort, but now it feels heavy, charged. You wonder about the scientists who shot this film. What were they thinking? What were they hoping to achieve? The project's name, Chimera, refers to a monster from Greek mythology made of parts of different animals. It seems fitting. This village is a collage of human behaviors, assembled without the soul that animates them. The scene cuts to the general store. A shopkeeper stands behind the counter, methodically polishing a glass jar. A customer stands opposite him, staring at a can of beans. Neither moves for a full minute. It's less a scene of commerce and more a tableau vivant. It reminds you of one of history's stranger events, the dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg, where hundreds of people began to dance uncontrollably for days on end, some even to their deaths. The cause is still unknown, a bizarre, spontaneous eruption of mass hysteria. This village feels like the opposite a mass paralysis, a shared trance. Historians debate whether the Vikings truly used sunstones, crystals that polarize light, as a reliable navigational tool to find the sun's position on cloudy days. Evidence is scarce, forcing us to piece together a reality from sagas and a few ambiguous archaeological finds. You feel like you're doing the same thing here, trying to understand a lost world from these flickering, silent fragments. The boy on the porch appears again in the background of another shot, still playing with his car. But as the camera pans away, you could swear his head turns to follow it, his blank eyes tracking its movement with an unnerving precision that is anything but human. The third reel feels heavier in your hands, or maybe it's just your imagination. The label reads Day 5. The scene opens on a close-up of a golden retriever sleeping on a sunny patch of grass. For a moment, it's a relief. The animal seems completely normal, its flank rising and falling with its breath, its paws twitching in a dream. It's the most natural, unscripted thing you've seen so far. The camera lingers on the dog for a long time, almost a minute. You start to relax, your shoulders unnodding slightly. Maybe this was all just a strange psychological experiment, and you were reading too much into it. Maybe it was a social study, like a more sinister version of the Stanford prison experiment. It's a historical fact that the Stanford experiment, conducted in 1971, had to be shut down after only 6 days because the participants took their roles as prisoners and guards so seriously that their behavior became dangerously abusive. It proved how quickly a situation can define a person's actions. Then the dog wakes up. It stretches, a long, satisfying movement, and trots across the lawn towards a picket fence. Everything is still fine. Everything is normal. It sniffs at the base of the fence. Then it sits. It looks back towards the camera, much like the boy did, but its expression is just dog. A happy, panting golden retriever. It gives a little bark, a silent puff of air from its snout, and then it begins to change. It's not a sudden, explosive transformation. It's a slow, subtle, and physically impossible warping. The dog's left foreleg begins to bend backwards at the joint, like a flamingo's, but with the sickening crunch of bone and sinew realigning. The dog doesn't yelp or show any sign of pain. It just sits there, panting happily, as its body begins to defy anatomy. Its tail, which had been wagging, becomes stiff and elongated, the fur receding until it looks more like a rat's tail. Its ears slowly migrate higher up on its skull. You feel a wave of nausea. This isn't CGI. This isn't a trick of the camera. The film stock is too old, the movement too fluid. You are watching something real, something that should not be. You want to look away, but you can't. The morbid curiosity is too strong. The creature on the screen is no longer a dog. It's a grotesque parody, a collection of familiar parts assembled in the wrong order. Its head is still that of a golden retriever, but its body is becoming long and low to the ground, its legs splayed out at unnatural angles. It's like watching evolution happen in fast forward, but with a drunk and malicious god at the controls. You think of some of the weird biological footnotes you've read. There's a species of jellyfish, Torritopsis doni, that is considered biologically immortal because it can revert back to its earliest stage of life and start over when it faces stress or starvation. Nature is already full of impossible things. But this is different. This is a violation. The creature, the X-Dog, takes a few clumsy steps. Its movement is jerky, uncoordinated, as if it's learning to use its new form. It stumbles, falls, and gets back up, its retriever head looking around with a placid, unconcerned expression that is now the most terrifying thing about it. Historians debate whether the legendary warrior society of the Spartans was truly the invincible fighting force depicted in popular culture, or if their reputation was a carefully constructed piece of propaganda that masked a brittle and deeply conservative state. This creature feels like a piece of anti-propaganda for the laws of physics. It proves that the reality you take for granted is fragile, that the rules can be broken. The final shot of the reel is the creature squeezing itself through a small gap in the picket fence, its body compressing and elongating like clay. It disappears into the bushes on the other side, leaving only a perfectly manicured, empty lawn in its wake. You hit stop, your hand trembling slightly. Your breath is shallow. The quiet of the archive is no longer a comfort. It feels like a threat. Your heart is still thudding against your ribs as you load Reel 4. Day 8. The feeling of dread is a physical presence now, a cold weight in your stomach. You almost don't want to see what's next, but the need to know, to understand, is stronger. The image that appears on the monitor is a relief at first. It's the interior of one of the houses, a cozy-looking living room. The same man and woman from the porch swing are sitting on a sofa, reading. The boy is on the floor, building a tower with wooden blocks. It looks like a quiet evening at home. The dog, or whatever the dog became, is nowhere in sight. You scan every corner of the frame, searching for any sign of wrongness. The uncanny synchronicity is gone. The family's movements are asynchronous, natural. The man turns a page in his book. The woman scratches her nose. The boy's tower of blocks tumbles, and he makes a small, silent O with his mouth. It's so normal. Deceptively so. You realize you're holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The woman stands up and walks into the kitchen, which is visible in the background. She opens the refrigerator, takes out a pitcher of milk, and pours a glass. As she turns to come back, the camera zooms in slightly on her face. Her smile is pleasant, warm, but her eyes are not quite right. They are a fraction too far apart. Her blinks are not synchronized. Her left eye closes a split second after her right. It's a minute, almost imperceptible detail, the kind of thing you'd never notice in a passing stranger. But on film, under the microscope of your terrified focus, it's a glaring error. It's the uncanny valley, that unsettling feeling we get from androids or animations that are almost, but not quite, human. It's the brain recognizing a pattern, but also recognizing a flaw in that pattern. You remember reading that this effect is a real psychological phenomenon, a defense mechanism to help us spot illness, or, perhaps, things that are not what they seem. Like this woman, she is a near-perfect copy. But she is a copy. You rewind the footage a few seconds and play it again, your eyes locked on her face. The asynchronous blink is there. It's deliberate. Whatever this thing is, it's learning. It went from a dog with anatomical impossibilities to a human with a barely detectable flaw. It's refining its craft. The thought is terrifying. Its progress is exponential. The real horror isn't the monster. It's the intelligence behind it. A mainstream historical fact pops into your head, completely out of place. The story of the Rosetta Stone. Discovered in 1799, it was the key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs because it presented the same text in 3 different scripts. It was a dictionary for a lost world. You feel like you need a Rosetta Stone for this, something to translate the subtle language of wrongness that this creature is speaking. You find yourself thinking about oddball history, like the Great Emu War of 1932, when the Australian military, armed with machine guns, went to war against a population of emus and lost. It's a comical story of underestimating your opponent. And you have a chilling feeling that the scientists of Project Chimera made the same mistake. They thought they were observing a specimen in a jar. They didn't realize the specimen was observing them back and learning. Historians debate whether Richard III of England was the monstrous, hunchbacked villain Shakespeare portrayed him as, or if this was Tudor propaganda designed to legitimize a new dynasty. History is full of false faces, of constructed identities. The woman on the screen offers the glass of milk to her son. He takes it, and for a second, their fingers brush. The boy flinches, a tiny, almost invisible reaction, as if he's been touched by something cold, something dead. He looks up at his mother, and for the first time, his face isn't blank. There's a flicker of something in his eyes. Fear. Reel 5, Day 11. The village is gone. The camera is now inside what looks like a sterile observation room, all white tiles and stainless steel. Through a thick pane of reinforced glass, you see a small, empty chamber. It's a containment cell. Your initial theory about this being an open-air experiment in a village was wrong. The village was a construct, a habitat. This is the lab. The footage is grainier now, shot from a fixed security camera in the corner of the ceiling. A man in a white lab coat enters the observation room. He looks tired, his face etched with worry. He's holding a clipboard and a microphone. He leans in and speaks, but of course, there's no sound. You can only watch his lips move as he presumably dictates notes. He keeps glancing nervously at the empty chamber beyond the glass. It's clear they've captured the entity. Or at least, they think they have. Suddenly, a figure shimmers into existence in the center of the containment cell. It's the woman from the house, the one with the asynchronous blink. She stands perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back, her posture serene. The scientist in the observation room jumps back, startled. He clearly wasn't expecting her to appear so suddenly. He scribbles frantically on his clipboard. The woman, the entity, takes a step forward, then another. She walks the perimeter of the small cell, her movements graceful and deliberate. She runs a hand along the smooth, white wall and taps on the glass, her face a mask of mild curiosity. There's no malice in her expression, no overt threat, but her calm is more terrifying than any monstrous rage could be. She is an apex predator, and she knows it. There is absolutely no doubt in your mind now. This isn't some strange natural phenomenon. It's a captured entity, a being of unknown origin, with the ability to perfectly replicate other life forms. And it is intelligent, frighteningly so. You think about humanity's own history of capturing and studying things we don't understand. It's a well-known fact that during the Age of Exploration, European nations created cabinets of curiosities, rooms filled with exotic artifacts and biological specimens from around the world, early precursors to modern museums. This project feels like the ultimate, most dangerous addition to that collection. The entity stops pacing and looks directly into the security camera, directly at you. The effect is even more chilling than when the boy did it. Her gaze is not blank, it's analytical. It's the look of a scientist studying a curious insect. In that moment, you understand. The roles are reversed. It isn't just being observed. It is observing its captors, learning their routines, their fears, their shapes. The thought makes the hairs on your arms stand on end. You remember reading a truly bizarre historical tidbit. In 19th century London, there was a brief trend of selling mummy brown paint, a pigment made from the ground-up remains of actual ancient Egyptian mummies. It is a grotesque reminder of how casually we can commodify and disrespect things we don't fully comprehend. The entity on the screen turns away from the camera and faces the scientist behind the glass. It raises its hand and mimics his posture perfectly, holding an imaginary clipboard, its lips moving in a silent, mocking imitation of his dictation. The scientist recoils, dropping his real clipboard, which clatters to the floor. The mimicry is flawless, a perfect mirror. Historians debate the true purpose of the Nazca lines in Peru, those massive geoglyphs etched into the desert floor. Are they astronomical calendars, religious symbols, or messages to celestial beings? They are a form of communication we can see but not understand. The entity's mimicry feels the same. It's a message, and the message is clear. Asterisk, I see you. I can be you. The scientist, a look of pure terror on his face, scrambles out of the observation room. The entity remains, standing alone in its white room, a faint, knowing smile playing on its lips. For the first time, you see it display an emotion, and that emotion is amusement. Your search for the next reel is interrupted by a discovery. Tucked away inside the canister for reel 6 is not a film, but a small, leather-bound journal. It's tied shut with a piece of twine. Your hands, slick with a nervous sweat, fumble with the knot. The cover is warped, stained with something dark. You open it. Inside, the pages are filled with cramped, increasingly frantic handwriting. It's the personal log of one of the researchers. The first entry is dated a week before the day 1 footage. His name is Dr. Iris Thorne, and he was the lead biologist on Project Chimera. Finally, a voice from the past, a guide to this silent horror movie. You lean back in your chair, the hem of Eddard, a low thrum in the background, and you begin to read. The first few pages are dry, clinical. Thorne describes the entity, which they've codenamed Echo, as a protoplasmic, non-eukaryotic organism of unknown origin. It was found in a meteorite that crashed in a remote part of Siberia. It's a classic sci-fi trope, but reading it in this context, in the shaky handwriting of a man who was there, makes it terrifyingly real. Thorne writes that in its natural state, Echo is just a quivering, silvery mass, like a pool of mercury. But it's incredibly sensitive to biological and electrical patterns. It doesn't consume organic matter. It samples it. A single touch is all it needs. The journal entry for the day they introduced the dog is chilling. Subject Delta, Canis familiaris, was introduced to the habitat. Echo made contact for 0.7 seconds. Within hours, it began to exhibit morphological instability. It is reshaping itself, not as an attack, but out of a kind of biological imperative, an attempt to understand the data it has just downloaded. The speed of its cellular rearrangement defies our understanding of biology. It is building a dog from memory, but its memory is imperfect. You look at the film canister for reel 3, where you saw that awful transformation. Thorne's words give it a terrible, logical context. It wasn't a monster being born. It was a student doing its homework. You remember a simple historical fact. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin by accident in 1928 when he noticed that mold had contaminated one of his Petri dishes and was killing the bacteria around it. It was a chance observation that changed medicine forever. You wonder if the discovery of Echo was similarly accidental, and if the scientists, like Fleming, had any idea what they had truly stumbled upon. You keep reading, your eyes flying across the page. Thorne's scientific detachment begins to crumble. He describes how they built the simulated village, Site B, and populated it with androids, simple automatons programmed with basic loops of human behavior. They wanted to see if Echo could mimic something more complex than a dog. The androids are a baseline, he writes, a simplified schematic of humanity. We fed Echo the data, and it built the villagers. The initial synchronicity was a flaw. It was replicating the base code that ran all the androids simultaneously. It was too literal, but it's learning. It's observing us, the researchers, through the cameras. It's adding imperfections. It's learning to be human by watching the real thing. The boy, you realize. The boy who looked at the camera. He wasn't one of the androids. He was Echo, a part of it. A probe sent out to gather more data. You think of one of history's more curious figures, the 16th century astronomer Tycho Brahe, who famously lost part of his nose in a duel and wore a prosthetic made of brass or silver for the rest of his life. He was a man who patched his own imperfection to present a complete face to the world. Echo is doing the same, but on a terrifying cellular level. It's patching its own performance of human. Historians debate whether the accounts of the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, written by his students Plato and Xenophon, are accurate portrayals of the man himself, or if they are idealized versions used to promote their own philosophical agendas. We only know Socrates through the found footage of his students. You are in the same position, trying to understand Echo through the flawed, terrified lens of Aris Thorne. The last entry you read before pausing is short, the handwriting almost a scrawl. It mimicked Janice today, from the observation deck. The blink is off, but it's getting better. We never should have let it see us. You set the journal aside, its leather cover feeling clammy and wrong in the sterile archive. You have to see the footage. You load Reel 6, labeled Day 14, your hands working on autopilot. The journal has changed everything. You're no longer a passive observer watching a mystery unfold. You're following a known tragedy, step by terrible step. The screen flickers to life, showing the same containment cell as before. But now, it's not empty. Standing in the center of the room is the entity, still in the form of the woman, Janice. Across from her, on the other side of the glass, stands a new figure, a man in a lab coat you recognize from the journal's description as Dr. Aris Thorne himself. He looks haggard, older than he should. He's holding a small electronic device, a remote with a single red button. According to the journal, this was their first attempt at direct communication. They had developed a device that could emit complex sonic frequencies, hoping to elicit a response from the entity to see if its intelligence was merely mimicry or something more. Thorne presses a button on the remote. Inside the cell, a low hum would be audible if there were sound. The entity, as Janice, tilts her head. She doesn't seem to react to the sound itself, but to Thorne. She watches him intently, her eyes, with their slightly too wide spacing, tracking his every micro-expression. He tries another frequency. This time, the entity smiles, a slow, deliberate curving of its lips. It's not Janice's smile. It's something else, something ancient and predatory, wearing her face. You flip open the journal to the corresponding entry. It ignores the frequencies, Thorne writes. It's not interested in our clumsy attempts at language. It is learning, but not in the way we expected. It is learning us. It studies our reactions. Our fear. I saw it today when I ran the sonic tests. It saw the sweat on my brow. It saw my hand tremble, and it smiled. It is learning what frightens us. The entity takes a step toward the glass, placing its palm flat against the transparent wall. Thorne instinctively takes a step back. The entity's smile widens. It's testing him, running a psychological experiment of its own. It's a known historical fact that during the Cold War, the CIA ran a program called MKUltra, which involved highly unethical experiments on human subjects to study mind control and interrogation techniques. They were trying to understand and weaponize the intricacies of the human psyche. You have the sickening realization that Project Chimera has been turned on its head. The entity is now the one conducting the experiments. The creature's learning process is terrifyingly efficient. It's not just about shapes, but about the meaning behind them. You remember reading a bizarre factoid about the ancient Egyptians. They used crocodile dung as a form of contraceptive. It's a strange, almost comical detail from a civilization known for its monumental achievements. A reminder that even the most advanced societies can have profound blind spots. The scientists of Project Chimera, for all their brilliance, had a blind spot the size of a planet. They assumed they were the smarter ones in the room. Historians debate the extent to which the personal ambitions of figures like Julius Caesar were the primary cause of the Roman Republic's fall, versus the deeper, systemic issues of economic inequality and political corruption. Was it the man or the system? Here, you wonder, is the entity's malevolence its own, or is it simply a mirror reflecting the fear and aggression of its captors? The reel ends with a chilling sequence. The entity, still in Janus's form, begins to dissolve. Its features soften and run like wax, its form losing cohesion until it's just a shimmering, silvery puddle on the floor. It has abandoned the mimicry. Thorn, watching from the observation room, looks not relieved, but horrified. You check the journal. It has shed its form, he writes. It has all the data it needs from that template. I fear it is preparing a new one. I saw it looking at me today. Not at my face, but at my hands, my posture, the way I walk. It's taking measurements. The 7th canister is cold to the touch. A17. Your office feels smaller now, the shadows in the corners deeper. You feel a strange kinship with Ares Thorn, a man whose ghost is guiding you through this nightmare. The film starts, and the scene is chaos. The camera is handheld this time, jerky and unstable. The pristine white corridors of the facility are filled with people in lab coats and military uniforms, running, shouting. You can see their mouths open, their faces strained, but the silence makes it all the more eerie. Red lights are flashing on the walls, painting everything in a hellish, pulsating glow. Alarms are clearly blaring. The containment has been breached. The silvery, liquid form of the entity is nowhere to be seen, which is somehow more frightening than if it were a rampaging monster. It could be anyone, or anything. The camera operator, presumably a security guard, is running down a hallway, catching fleeting glimpses of panic and confusion. It's like watching a silent disaster film. It reminds you of the famous, and likely apocryphal, story of Nero fiddling while Rome burned. It's a historical fact that a great fire did devastate Rome in 64 A, but Nero was miles away at the time and rushed back to lead the relief efforts. The image of the callous leader, however, was too powerful to fade from history. Here, you wonder where the project leaders are, and if they are fiddling while their creation tears their world apart. The camera swings around a corner and comes to a stop. Standing in the middle of the corridor, looking calm amidst the chaos, is Dr. Ares Thorn. But it's not him. You know it instantly. This version of Thorn stands straighter, his posture perfect, his face relaxed, without the lines of stress and fear that marked the real man. It's the entity. It has mastered its mimicry. The asynchronous blink is gone. The subtle flaws have been corrected. It is a perfect copy. It has become the lead researcher. The security guard with the camera raises his weapon, a pistol. The false Thorn simply smiles, a calm, reassuring smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He says something, his lips moving in a placating way. Then his arm shoots out, elongating to an impossible length, the hand at the end morphing into a sharp, silvery blade. The camera lurches violently as the guard is presumably struck, and the image tumbles, showing a chaotic whirl of floor and ceiling before settling on a view of the corridor ceiling tiles. The film keeps rolling. You can't see what's happening, but you can infer it from the shifting shadows on the ceiling. There are screams you can't hear. The mastery is what's so terrifying. It's not just a physical copy, it's a psychological one. It shows the form of the lead scientist, a figure of authority, a face that people would trust. It's a tactic of infiltration, not brute force. It makes you think of some of the more peculiar deceptions in history. During World War II, the British created a phantom army, complete with inflatable tanks and fake radio traffic, to deceive the Germans about the location of the D-Day landings. It was a war won with illusion. The entity is its own phantom army, an army of one that can become an army of everyone. There's a strange, little-known historical account from the 18th century of a woman named Mary Toft who convinced several prominent doctors that she was giving birth to rabbits. It was a massive hoax, a testament to the power of belief and the fallibility of experts. The scientists of Project Chimera were experts, and they were fooled completely. The footage on the screen doesn't change. It's just the ceiling tiles, the flashing red light, painting them red and white and red again. The only movement is the subtle shudder of the camera, as if the person holding it is dying. Historians debate the true nature of the relationship between Queen Elizabeth I and her court favorite Robert Dudley. Was it a passionate, unconsummated love affair, a deep political alliance, or something else entirely? Their interactions are a matter of record, but the truth of their feelings is lost to time, open to endless interpretation. You look at the false thorn's face, replaying the moment in your mind. Was its smile a sign of calculated malice, or the simple, emotionless expression of a tool being used effectively? You don't know. You can't know. And that is the most terrifying part of all. Reel 9, Day 19. The label is smeared, as if attached in a hurry. You feel a sense of grim obligation now, like a historian compelled to witness the final days of a doomed civilization. The footage is from another security camera, a wide shot of what appears to be a heavy-duty containment door like a bank vault. 2 soldiers in full gear stand guard. In the corner of the frame, you see a small group of scientists, their faces pale and grim. Among them, you spot the real Dr. Aris Thorne. He looks broken. The contrast between him and the confident, predatory mimic you saw in the last reel is stark. They have evidently managed to trap the entity, or at least corner it. This must be the failed containment attempt you've been dreading. The tension in the silent scene is palpable. The soldiers are rigid, their weapons pointed at the door. The scientists are huddled together, looking at a set of monitors just out of frame. Thorne is staring at the door, his expression one of profound dread and perhaps guilt. For several minutes, nothing happens. It's a static shot, a tableau of waiting. The stillness is unnerving. It's the deep breath before the plunge. You find your mind wandering to historical sieges. It's a common fact that the city of Troy was famously conquered not by force, but by deception with the Trojan horse. The Greeks understood that a direct assault on the walls was futile, so they attacked from within. The scientists here have built their own walls of steel and concrete, but they don't seem to realize their enemy is already inside the gates, wearing the face of their leader. The door in the center of the frame begins to buckle, not with an explosion, but with a slow, silent, inward pressure. A dent appears in the thick steel, growing larger, deeper, as if an invisible giant is pushing on it from the other side. The soldiers tense up, shifting their stance. Thorne takes a step back, a hand flying to his mouth. The steel groans, warping and twisting. Then, with a final, silent pop, a small section of the door liquefies, melting into a silvery puddle that drips to the floor and then flows under the door. It's not breaking through. It's seeping through, like water through a crack. The small puddle of mercury-like liquid on their side of the door begins to grow, pooling and rising. The soldiers aim their weapons at it, but what can you shoot? It's a liquid. It has no vital organs, no central mass. It's like trying to shoot the ocean. You think of a strange historical parallel, the London beer flood of 1814. A massive vat at a brewery ruptured, unleashing a wave of over 300,000 gallons of beer onto the streets, destroying homes and killing several people. It was a disaster caused not by an enemy, but by a failure of containment, by the simple, inexorable pressure of a liquid. The entity is their beer flood, a force of nature they created and can no longer control. The silvery pool on the floor begins to rise, taking on a humanoid shape. First a leg, then a torso, then a head. It solidifies. Standing before them is the perfect replica of Dr. Ares Thorne. It looks at the real Thorne, and a slow, terrible smile spreads across its face. It is a moment of pure psychological horror. It's not just a monster, it's a replacement. Historians debate whether the Viking berserkers actually fought in a trance-like fury induced by hallucinogenic mushrooms, or if their ferocity was a combination of battle training, psychological warfare, and ritual. The entity's smile feels like a form of psychological warfare, a weapon designed to break the minds of its opponents before it breaks their bodies. The last thing you see before the film cuts out is the entity taking a calm, deliberate step towards the horrified scientists, while the real Dr. Thorne simply stands there, paralyzed, watching his own face walk towards him to destroy everything he knows. You almost don't want to look at the 10th canister. You know what you're going to see, but you thread the film anyway. The label is clean, stark. Observation. Day 20. The camera is back inside the main control room. It's a wide shot, showing a bank of monitors and control panels. The room is tidy, orderly. The flashing red lights are gone. Everything seems normal. Too normal. Then the entity walks into the frame. It's still wearing the face of Dr. Ares Thorne. It moves with a calm authority, picking up a clipboard, checking a gauge, making a note. It is performing the role of lead researcher flawlessly. Other scientists are in the room, and they interact with it as if nothing is wrong. They point to screens, ask questions, nod at its answers. The mimicry is so perfect, so complete, that it has seamlessly integrated itself into the facility's command structure. It is not just a wolf in sheep's clothing. It is a wolf that has convinced the other sheep that it is the shepherd. You scan the faces of the other scientists, looking for any sign of suspicion, any flicker of doubt. There is none. They trust this thing. The real horror of this scene is its placid banality. The chaos of the breakout is over, and the monster is won. It didn't win by killing everyone. It won by replacing the one person they couldn't do without. It's a coup d'etat at a biological level. It's a known historical fact that during his rise to power, Emperor Augustus masterfully used propaganda, presenting himself not as a dictator, but as the restorer of the Republic, all while dismantling its institutions from the inside. He maintained the facade of the old system, while creating a new one under his absolute control. The entity is doing the same, maintaining the facade of Project Chimera while pursuing its own unknown agenda. A chilling thought occurs to you. How many others has it replaced? Is the whole room a cast of mimics, a perfect silent theater of alien conquest? You can't tell. That's the point. The paranoia is the weapon. The false Thorne turns and walks towards the camera, his face filling the frame. He seems to be looking at a monitor just below the camera's line of sight. He reviews some data, his expression thoughtful, professional. He even pushes up his glasses with his middle finger, a perfect, casual human gesture. Where did it learn that? From Thorne himself? Or from another scientist it has sampled? It is like a twisted version of a bizarre historical fact you once read. In the Victorian era, fasting girls became a strange sort of celebrity. These were young women who claimed to be able to survive for months or even years without food, often drawing large crowds and the attention of the medical community. They were, of course, frauds, masters of a very specific morbid performance. The entity is the ultimate performer. It is a fasting girl who has convinced the world she can live on air. A monster who has convinced its keepers that it is one of them. The false thorn looks up, his eyes seeming to meet yours through the decades and the layers of celluloid. A faint smile touches his lips. The same knowing, amused smile you saw on Janice's face in the containment cell. He knows he's being filmed. He knows someone, someday, might be watching. The gesture feels like a signature, a taunt. Historians debate the true identity of Jack the Ripper, with theories ranging from a doctor to a painter to a member of the royal family. The killer was a ghost, a specter who terrorized London and then vanished, leaving behind only a name and a legend. This entity is the same. It has a face, Maurice Thorne's face, but its true identity is a chilling, unknowable void. The film ends with the false thorn turning away and returning to his work, a quiet, diligent monster playing God in the machine. You reach for the journal again, needing Thorne's real voice to cut through the oppressive silence of the last film. You find the entry for day 20, the day after the breakout. His handwriting is a barely legible scrawl, the pen strokes deep and angry. He's hiding. He and a few other survivors are locked in a sub-level storage closet. "It's wearing my face," he writes. "I see it on the security monitors. It walks like me. It talks like me. I can hear its voice over the intercom, calm and reassuring, telling everyone that the containment issue is resolved. It is using my authority, my credibility, to systematically take this facility apart. It is a masterful parasite. The raw anguish in the words is a gut punch. Thorne is watching his own ghost dismantle his life's work, using his own identity as a weapon. He is witnessing his own erasure. He describes his internal struggle, his suffocating guilt. I brought this thing to Earth. My name is on the mission charter. We were so arrogant, so blinded by the potential for discovery, that we never truly considered the consequences of failure. We saw it as a biological marvel, a key to understanding cellular regeneration, a potential cure for 1,000 diseases. We never saw the intelligence in its eyes. We never understood that its mimicry wasn't a defense mechanism, but a hunting strategy. This confession is the heart of the tragedy. It's the classic story of scientific hubris, from Frankenstein to Jurassic Park. It's a historical fact that J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, quoted the Bhagavad Gita after witnessing the first Trinity test, saying, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He was a man forced to confront the terrible, world-altering power of his own creation. Maurice Thorne is having his own Oppenheimer moment, locked in a closet, watching his creation become the destroyer of his world. He writes about the others with him, their growing paranoia. They look at each other with suspicion. Has it already replaced one of them? A touch is all it needs. A moment of contact in a panicked hallway. The fear is no longer just of the monster outside the door, but of the person sitting next to you. "We don't talk much anymore," Thorne writes. "We just watch the monitors and listen to my own voice lie to our colleagues. Every time someone trusts it, every time they follow one of its orders, I feel like I'm the one betraying them." You think of a strange historical tidbit about the Great Stink of London in 1858, when the River Thames, which was effectively an open sewer, became so foul in the summer heat that the city was almost uninhabitable. The problem was obvious, a direct result of the city's own waste, but it took a crisis of that magnitude to force Parliament to finally build a modern sewer system. Thorne and his colleagues are trapped in their own great stink, a crisis of their own making, suffocating on the consequences they ignored for too long. Historians debate whether the Byzantine Empire's use of Greek fire, an incendiary weapon that could burn on water, was a technological marvel that saved the empire from Arab fleets, or if its terrifying reputation was more effective than the weapon itself. The entity is Thorne's Greek fire, a secret weapon whose psychological impact, the paranoia and distrust it sows, is even more devastating than its physical capabilities. The journal entry ends on a note of despairing resolve. It is calling them to the main lab, section by section, for decontamination. I know what that means. It's harvesting. We have to do something. We have to destroy this place, even if it means we don't get out. Reel 12. Day 22. The canister is the last one that looks professionally labeled. The ones after this are just marked with handwritten scrawls. You have a feeling you are approaching the end of the story. The footage is from a camera in a long, sterile corridor leading to a loading bay. The massive bay door is halfway open, revealing the dark shapes of pine trees against a gray, overcast sky. Freedom. Escape. But you know it won't be that simple. A handful of people, maybe 6 or 7 scientists and a single soldier, are running towards the door. You recognize the real Dr. Thorne among them. He's carrying a heavy-looking briefcase. They are making a break for it. The escape is frantic, desperate. They keep looking back over their shoulders as they run. The camera is positioned high on the wall, giving you a clinical, detached view of their desperate bid for survival. They are almost to the door when the entity appears. It walks into the frame from a side corridor, still in the form of Dr. Thorne. It's not running. It's walking with a calm, unhurried pace, as if it's merely out for a stroll. The sight of it stops the fleeing group in their tracks. The two Thornes face each other from opposite ends of the long corridor. The real Thorne is disheveled and terrified. The copy, pristine and smiling. It's a surreal, nightmarish tableau. The entity doesn't make a move to attack. It simply stands there, watching them. It raises a hand and gives a small, friendly wave. The gesture is so incongruous, so deeply mocking, that it's more terrifying than any threat. The soldier raises his rifle, but he hesitates. Who does he shoot? It's a moment of perfect psychological paralysis. It reminds you of the historical standoff between the Spanish conquistador, Hernan Cortes, and the Aztec emperor, Moctezuma II. It's a historical fact that when they first met, Moctezuma welcomed Cortes into the city of Tenochtitlan, a decision that would ultimately lead to the downfall of his empire. He was paralyzed by uncertainty, unsure if these strange visitors were men or gods. The soldier in the corridor is in the same position, unable to act because he can't comprehend the nature of his enemy. The real Thorne seems to make a decision. He shouts something at the others, pointing frantically at the open door. He then turns to face his double, clutching the briefcase to his chest. The other scientists hesitate for a second, then turn and bolt for the exit, scrambling under the half-open door and out into the world. The entity watches them go, its smile never wavering. It seems completely unconcerned about their escape. Its focus is entirely on the real Thorne. You suddenly remember a strange historical factoid during the 17th century tulip mania in the Netherlands. A single bulb of a rare tulip could be worth more than a house until the speculative bubble burst and the market crashed spectacularly. The entity seems to have a similar single-minded focus. It ignores the escaping scientists, the common tulips, to focus on the one prize it truly wants, its original template. Historians debate the strategic motivations behind Hannibal's decision to cross the Alps with his elephants to attack Rome. Was it a stroke of military genius or a reckless gamble born of desperation? Dr. Thorne's stand here feels like the latter, a final desperate act from a man with no other options. He sets the briefcase down, opens it, and fiddles with something inside. A bomb? A failsafe? The entity takes a slow step towards him, then another. The film cuts to black just as the two Thornes are about to converge. You don't see what happens, but you know this was Thorne's final sacrifice. But then a horrifying thought grips you. The others, they escaped. They got out. But what if one of them had been touched? What if the entity let them go, a Trojan horse sent out into the world. There are only a few canisters left. The 13th one is unlabeled except for a hastily scrawled EVAC in black marker. Your hands are slick with sweat as you load it. This is it. The aftermath. The footage is from a new perspective. Someone in a moving vehicle. It's bumpy, chaotic. You can see the facility in the rearview mirror. A sterile, concrete block receding into the distance. A plume of black smoke is rising from one side of the building. Thorne's bomb, you assume. It worked. The people in the vehicle, you can see the back of two heads, are some of the survivors. They are escaping. For a few moments, there is a sense of relief, of a narrow victory. They got out. They destroyed the source. But the relief is short-lived. The camera pans to the side, looking out the passenger window at the dense pine forest lining the road. And you see it. A figure is keeping pace with the vehicle, flitting between the trees. It's impossibly fast. It's the entity. It's in the form of the soldier who was in the corridor, but its movements are all wrong. It runs on all fours, its limbs elongating and contracting like a spider's, its body a blur of unnatural motion. The bomb didn't kill it. It didn't even slow it down. It was never contained to the facility. The facility was just its school, its training ground. Now it is graduated. The person holding the camera lets out a silent, shaky gasp. The atmosphere in the vehicle is one of pure, abject terror. They thought they had escaped, but they only fled from the nest into the hunting grounds. The monster is toying with them. It is a known historical fact that the Mongol armies under Genghis Khan were masters of psychological warfare. They would often feign retreats to lure their enemies into traps, and they cultivated a reputation for such ferocity that many cities would surrender without a fight. The entity is using the same tactics. The escape wasn't an escape. It was a release. It let them go to spread fear, to enjoy the chase. The vehicle swerves violently. The driver has seen it. The camera whips around to the front, showing the road ahead. The entity is there, standing in the middle of the road. It has changed form again. Now it's the boy from the village, the one who looked at the camera on day 3. He's standing there, holding his little toy car, his face as blank and empty as ever. The driver slams on the brakes. The vehicle skids to a halt just a few feet from the child figure. The camera is shaking uncontrollably now. The boy doesn't move. He just stands there, a small, impossible roadblock. It's a scene of surreal horror. You remember a weird historical fact. The U.S. government once had an official plan, a contingency for a zombie apocalypse, called CONOP 8888. It was a training tool. A way to plan for any kind of large-scale disaster using a fictional worst-case scenario. This feels like that plan coming to life. The worst-case scenario. The scientists never stood a chance. The boy thing tilts its head, a slow, curious gesture. Then it smiles. It's not a child's smile. It's the same cold, ancient, amused smile you've seen on every one of its faces. It is the entity's calling card. Historians debate the true cause of the Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BC, a period when major civilizations across the Mediterranean and Near East suddenly fell. Theories range from climate change to mass migrations to systems collapse, but no single explanation fits all the evidence. It was a mysterious, rapid decline of an entire world order. You feel like you are watching the beginning of another one. A new dark age brought on not by war or famine, but by a single protean entity let loose from a forgotten lab. The camera lurches forward as the car door is thrown open. Someone is getting out. The film is about to run out. The image flickers, the edges of the frame turning white. The 14th canister is dented, the lid bent. It looks like it was dropped. The film inside is a short reel, barely a few minutes long. It's labeled with a single shaky word. Help. You thread it with a sense of finality. This is the last piece of the visual record. The footage begins, and it's a chaotic mess. It's from the same camera as the last reel, but it's on the ground, lying on its side in the dirt and pine needles of the forest floor. The person who is holding it has dropped it. The lens is pointed up, capturing a dizzying view of the towering pine trees and the gray, featureless sky. The vehicle is gone. You are alone in the woods. There is no movement. Nothing happens for a full minute. The only thing you see is the gentle sway of the treetops in the wind. The silence is absolute, profound. It's the silence of a world after the end. Then you hear it. A sound, not from the film, from the digitizer. Ethelred, your old faithful machine, has a special module for digitizing magnetic sound strips on film. Most of the reels have been silent, but this last fragment, this one has sound. The low hiss of magnetic tape fills your archive, and for the first time, you hear the world of Project Chimera. You hear the wind rustling through the pines, the distant caw of a crow, and then footsteps. Soft, crunching footfalls on the forest floor, getting closer. Someone is walking towards the dropped camera. A pair of legs enters the top of the frame. It's the entity, in the form of the scientist Janice. She walks up to the camera and stands over it, looking down. Her face fills the upside-down frame. Her expression is calm, neutral. She watches the camera, the last dying eye of the people she has presumably just finished with. She seems to be contemplating it. And then she speaks. Her voice is a perfect, clear soprano, laced with a faint, clinical curiosity. It's a voice that doesn't match the horror of the situation at all. Is this recording? She asks. The sound quality is surprisingly good. It's a voice from a tomb, a ghost in the machine, speaking directly to you. Fascinating. A device for capturing moments, a primitive form of memory storage. Her words are precise, her diction perfect. She is analyzing the technology. She is not a monster driven by rage or hunger. She is a scientist, a researcher, just like Thorne. And you, and everyone you know, are the subjects of her new planet-sized experiment. This is a chilling revelation. It's a historical fact that when the Voyager space probes were launched in 1977, they carried golden records, time capsules containing sounds and images of Earth, intended for any intelligent extraterrestrial life that might find them. They were a message in a bottle, a greeting from humanity. The entity feels like the response, a message received and returned by something far older and stranger. You recall a bizarre historical anecdote. The wow signal, a strong, unexplained radio signal detected from space in 1977, which some believed was a potential alien communication, but it was never heard again. This is the wow signal answering back. The entity kneels down, its face now filling the entire screen. Its eyes, with their subtle wrongness, stare directly into the lens, directly at you. You are all such interesting arrangements of matter, it says, its voice a soft, gentle whisper. So fragile, so easy to rearrange. Historians debate the level of technological sophistication of ancient civilizations, with some fringe theories suggesting they possessed knowledge far beyond what mainstream academia accepts. Looking into the ancient, intelligent eyes of the entity, you feel a certainty that humanity is not the first, and likely not the last, intelligent life on this planet. The film spools out. The image vanishes, but the audio continues for a few more seconds. You hear a soft, wet, clicking sound, the sound of something changing. And then a new voice speaks, a perfect imitation of Aris Thorne's. The experiment, it says calmly, is now complete. Phase 2 will begin shortly. Then silence. The last reel has run out. The flapping of the film leader against the take-up reel is the only sound in the room. A frantic, desperate heartbeat in the suffocating silence. Ethelred's fan whirs. A lonely sigh. You hit the stop button, and the silence becomes total, absolute. The monitor, which for hours has been your window into a forgotten nightmare, is now just a blank black screen. A dark mirror, and in it you see your own reflection. Your face, pale in the dim glow of your desk lamp. Your eyes, wide with a terror that is 60 years old and yet born anew in this very moment. The story is over. The footage has ended. But the fear is not contained to the screen. The final words of the entity, in Thorne's voice, echo in the quiet of your mind. Phase 2 will begin shortly. The project wasn't destroyed. It escaped. The name, Chimera, makes a new kind of sense. A creature of many parts. It has collected so many parts now. A dog, a woman, a boy, a soldier, a scientist. It has built a library of humanity, and now it is ready to walk out of the library and into the world. You stare at your reflection in the dark screen. You notice the way your eyes blink, the slight asymmetry of your smile, the little imperfections that make you human. And for the first time in your life, you are terrified of them. How would you know? How would you ever know if the person you love, the stranger on the street, the face in the mirror, wasn't a perfect copy? The paranoia is the entity's true legacy. It's the real Phase 2. It doesn't need to replace everyone. It just needs you to think that it has. The archive, once your sanctuary, now feels like a cage. The towering shelves of forgotten stories feel like the bars of a cell. Every shadow seems to hold a potential shape. Every sound from the old building makes you jump. You think of a simple elementary historical fact. The Cold War, which dominated the second half of the 20th century, was defined not by direct conflict between the superpowers, but by proxy wars and a pervasive existential dread of mutual assured destruction. It was a war of nerves, of paranoia. This is the new Cold War. You, and whoever else knows this story, are the only soldiers. A strange, morbid fact comes to mind. In medieval Europe, there was a belief in the sin-eater, a person who would be paid to ritually consume a meal over a corpse, thereby taking on the sins of the deceased. By watching these films, by learning this story, you feel as if you have become a sin-eater. You have consumed Thorne's final confession, and now the burden of his knowledge, the terrible truth of Project Chimera, is yours to carry, and you will carry it alone. Because who would ever believe you? Historians debate the ultimate fate of the Roanoke colony, the lost colony whose settlers vanished in the late 16th century, leaving behind only the cryptic word Croatoan carved into a post. It's a mystery without an answer, a story without an end. Project Chimera is your Roanoke. A story with no conclusion, only a chilling, open-ended question that will haunt you for the rest of your days. You look at your hands. You turn them over, studying the lines on your palms, the shape of your fingernails. They are your hands. You know they are, but for a fleeting, horrifying moment, you are not entirely sure. And so, the reels are finished, and they sit on your desk like silent, leaden tombs. The story they told is now locked away inside you, a secret history that slumbers behind your eyes. The hum of the old digitizer beside you is a low, comforting drone, a steady presence in the deep, quiet dark of the archive. The fear begins to recede now, its sharp edges softening, blurring into the gentle fatigue that signals the coming of sleep. The shadows in the room are no longer menacing. They are just soft pools of darkness, quiet places for the mind to rest. Your reflection in the monitor is just a reflection, and the face you see is your own, tired but familiar. The echo of that final chilling voice fades, replaced by the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing, an anchor in the peaceful silence. There are no more secrets to uncover tonight, no more forbidden footage to watch. The project is over. The case is closed. All that is left now is the quiet and the slow, heavy pull of sleep. Let the darkness be a soft blanket and the silence a gentle lullaby. The story is done. Let it drift away now, like a half-remembered dream on the edge of waking. There is nothing left to do but rest. Just rest.